Welcome back. We're now moving on to the last piece of the further study, adding in the PokeGame component. So just to refresh your memory, the PokeGame component is going to basically deal 2 random hands from the 8 Pokemon. And those 2 Pokédex hands will then basically, one will be the winner, one will be the loser, and we're going to display that. So the PokeGame needs to determine which one wins based off of the total experience. So over here, I'm going to begin by making my new component. Once again, PokeGame.js, and I'll start with my basic import reacting component from React, and then I'm going to start with my skeleton class PokeGame extends component, and we'll have a render somewhere in here, and it should return, at the very least, let's just start with a simple div, and then inside of there, we can begin with PokeGame. Export default PokeGame. All right, next up, we need to actually add in the data that we're going to use. So I'm going to steal this from over here from Pokédex. We can actually leave it here. Probably doesn't make sense to, but it's just default props, and we're going to override the Pokemon prop by passing it in. So just to show you that, I will leave it there, but eventually I'll get rid of it. And then inside of our component, we'll just add in our default props with Pokemon inside of PokeGame. Now, instead of passing all Pokemon in through a loop, each to a Poke card, we're going to create 2 different hands. So I'm going to make 2 variables. I'm going to call one hand1 and just have it be an empty array to start. And then I'm going to make let hand2 be an array, but it's not going to be empty. I'm going to fill it with this .props.pokemon. Now this is just one way of randomly dealing them into 2 arrays. So there's not necessarily one correct way of doing this, but I'm starting with an empty array and then an array that contains the contents of this array. And then I'm going to loop. Basically, while this one is larger than this array, I'm going to randomly pick one item from here and put it over here. And then eventually they'll be equal lengths. So I'll do a while loop, while hand1.length is less than hand2.length. What do we want to do? I'm going to pick a random index, so I'll call it rand idx, and set that equal to math.floor. We've seen this earlier, math.random, but we have to multiply it by the length of hand2 because we're pulling from hand2. Okay, and save there. So that gives us a random index from inside of this array. Then we'll take that index and use it to grab the Pokemon. So I'll call this one rand Pokemon, and I'll set it equal to hand2.splice, that rand index. And we only want one. Splice allows you to take multiple elements at a time, but we only want one. And then we're going to push that in, hand1.push rand Pokemon. Okay, so then we're basically removing it from hand2, putting it into hand1, and we're repeating that over and over and over. Now, next thing we could do, just to test this out, is to console.log both of them. So it's not going to be pretty, but let's do console.log hand1, and then the same thing with hand2. We're not going to see anything because right now, this component is not being rendered in our app. So we're going to undo all of our hard work here. I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to stop importing Pokédex and only import PokeGame from ./PokeGame. Then in here, we'll return a single PokeGame and save. The moment of truth, we're getting PokeGame showing up. And in here, we have 2 arrays, both random. So if I refresh, I'm going to have different, I should have different, let's see, 119425. Okay, perfect. They are changing. Okay, so now we're going to take those and actually turn them into Pokédexes, which will then render Poke cards. So we'll come back, we can remove these console.logs, and instead of just returning an H1 that says PokeGame, we're now going to return 2 Pokédex components, which right now is not going to work because I haven't imported Pokédex. So import Pokédex from ./Pokédex. Okay, so now I can import it. So this first one, we're going to pass in the prop Pokemon as hand1. And then same thing down below, hand2. And we should now see 2 Pokédexes being displayed. And there we go. Here's the first one, and here's the second one. But remember, there was some additional logic. We were supposed to calculate which one wins. So what we're going to do is add up the total experience for each hand, and we'll pass that in. But we'll also pass in a prop called isWinner, depending on which one is larger. Because if we only passed in the total experience, like let's say I just hard coded in as this one is 100 and this one is 200 or something, the individual Pokédex only knows its own score. It's not going to know the other one. So it won't be able to decide if it wins or not. And it won't be able to conditionally display the right information. So we're also going to pass in an isWinner prop and set that to be true or false. But first we need to actually calculate the experience. So I'm going to use reduce. So I'm going to make a variable called experience1 for hand1, and it will be hand1.reduce. And then do experience in Pokemon like this. And we're just going to accumulate experience plus current Pokemon dot base experience. So add each experience together, and we'll start it at 0 like this. Okay. So this is going to go through all of hand 1, and for each Pokemon in there, we're going to take the base experience and add it, basically reduce it, starting with 0. So that should sum everything together. So now I'll do the same thing with hand 2 and call that variable exp or experience 2. Then further down here, I'm going to pass that in. So I'm going to add in a prop called exp for the Pokédex. We're not using it yet, and I'm going to call it experience 1. And this one will be experience 2. But this still doesn't help us as far as determining the winner, because it's the same problem I showed you earlier. The individual Pokédex only knows its own total experience. But let's just go to our Pokédex and just make sure that we are getting that data. So below the cards, actually let's do it above the cards right here. Let's add in a simple paragraph that says total experience, and then do this.props.exp. And this should show us now, this one has 334, this one has 538. Cool. This one should be the winner. So now we just need to go back to our PokeGame and pass in a prop that determines which one is the winner. So we could do this as separate variables, but the easiest thing is to do an isWinner prop and use a Boolean expression. So this one wins if experience 1 is greater than experience 2. Winner, I need 2 N's there. And this second one is winner if experience 2 is greater than experience 1. Great. So now we have this prop that's going in, but we're not actually using it, so we're not going to see a difference. So now let's go back to our Pokédex component, and inside of here, we have a couple of options for what we can do. We could start really simply. We now have a prop called isWinner. So at the top, or maybe just down below, we'll just do another paragraph to start. We're going to change this, but we'll do a paragraph tag, and inside of here, we'll do this.props.isWinner, question mark, and if you are a winner, we'll say winner. Otherwise, we'll say loser. And now we should at least have, it's not going to be color coded or anything, but we have text showing up conditionally. So this time, this hand had 570, this one had 302. This is the winner, this is the loser. Let's refresh. Do we get different values? Okay, so this one's a loser, this one wins. So that's actually it for the logic of making it all work, of refactoring everything to have a third PokeGame component. It randomly does 2 hands of 4 Pokemon, and we pass those in to 2 new Pokédex components. Then each of those Pokédex take those 4 Pokemon and in return render 4 Poké cards. Okay, so in the next video, we'll wrap everything up by styling things nicely. We'll make this color coded so the loser is red, the winner is green. We'll just make it look a little nicer. But this is it for the actual React stuff.